Okay, this is me trying out some techniques with alcohol inks for the first time. For real. The good, the bad, the ugly. This is another video with lots of cards, so let's go. First up, I tried embossing folders. I've never tried them before with my alcohol ink panels, and I wondered whether with the busy colors they'd even have an impact, or whether it would be different if I embossed before or after the inking. First, I'm creating a background on some YUPO paper, trying to get some stripes of 3 colors of alcohol inks by putting down a stripe of color, then blending solution, then moving it with my little air puffer until it dries. I'll use these same 3 colors in all the cards today, and the nice thing about them is that they'll blend to give me a full rainbow. When I had all the lines of ink down and dried, I tapped some drops of rubbing alcohol over the top to get a splatter effect. And once that was done, I ran the YUPO through my Gemini Junior with an Altenew embossing folder. This one's my current favorite. It has a small geometric pattern that just adds the perfect amount of interest. At least it usually does. I can't really see it here, can you? To finish the card, I cut the alcohol ink panel and a gold panel with a butterfly die from Waffle flower, and I inlaid the colorful butterflies into the gold outline. I put them onto a black panel for contrast, and then I used that same embossing folder on a white panel behind the black. In the light, you can see that the texture in the butterflies does catch the light a bit, but I'm not sure it really added a lot. Okay, so now what if I emboss the paper first with this daisy folder, which is also from Altenew, and then I'll put the inks on. To begin with, I tried to control the colors and almost paint the flowers with them, but it quickly became really clear that I'm not good enough at this to do that, at least not quite yet. And in the end, this looks like just another colorful alcohol ink panel, and again, the embossing really doesn't add much. But it doesn't take anything away either. This time I die cut some flowers from Crafty Meraki along with a die cut sentiment from Birch Press Design. Once again, the black background gives a lot of drama, and it really makes those colors pop. Next, I'm trying a technique I saw Cindy do on Instagram. I'll link her Insta below so you can see how she uses bubble wrap and how her results were different to mine. Even before I started, I was concerned because this bubble wrap almost seems like the bubbles are sandwiched in between 2 outer sheets of plastic, and I wasn't thinking I would be able to get a clear bubble pattern, but I gave it a go. This is a really easy technique. I dropped dots of my 3 alcohol inks all over the bubble wrap, and then I spritzed with some blending solution and I pressed it down onto my YUPO panel. Now, I didn't get a nice dotty pattern like Cindy did, but I'm still pretty happy with these colors and the little white spaces that were left. There was still a lot of ink on the bubble wrap, so I tried to get another print, and this time I got a better impression of the bubble wrap, but you can see what I mean about it maybe not being quite right, since I got rows rather than dots. I'll keep an eye out in my future packaging to see if I can try this again with a different type of bubble wrap. With the first panel, I made a Z or Z fold card. I cut a circle from the panel and I inlaid a CZ design sentiment die cut into it. I added 2 panels of black cardstock to the card base that had been embossed with that same Altenew embossing folder, and you open it by pulling it apart like this. And the area for your writing is here in the center. For all my cards, I added gold and black pearls along with some espresso jewels from Pink Fresh Studios. For the second panel, I simply added a layered up Celebrate die cut from Catherine Pooler Designs. I offset the gold over the black for a little more definition to the letters, and I think these rows of dots almost look like birthday candles. Next is a super fun technique from my friend Karen, and it involves a salad spinner. Yes, a salad spinner. I got this one for $5 from IKEA, and you can see that this is my actual first time trying this because it's so clean. By the end, you'll see why this won't be actually used in my kitchen. I started with an A2 size panel of YUPO, and it wouldn't fit all the way down to the bottom, so I kind of tucked the corners into the colander spaces, and it did stay in place. Next, I simply dropped my alcohol inks onto the paper, and then I spritzed with some rubbing alcohol. Then I put the lid on, and I spun it just like a salad. The centrifugal force from the spinning will move the ink to the edges, and that's science, baby! The results are pretty cool, and I think by playing with different colors and amounts of alcohol or blending solution, you'll get different looks with different amounts of coverage. I wanted to try it again, this time with a 4 1/4 inch square piece of YUPO, and I'll give you a different angle to see how it looks while it's spinning. This time the paper can fit right down onto the base, and in the end I don't think it really made a difference, so working with the larger size is perfectly fine. Here's the result this time, and I made this into another birthday card by cutting a circle from the center and making a negative frame, and really using that diagonal line in the pattern. These letters are from an iCrafter alphabet. Despite their small size, I find them really easy to work with, and I stacked 2 layers of black cardstock before adding some Nouveau Crystal glaze for shine. For my next panel, I used my gel plate. I've seen people use alcohol inks on gel plates, but usually they use acrylic paint to pick them up. But to be honest, I completely forgot about that, so I'll have to try that another time. For this time, I basically treated them as if they were like ink refills. That's something else I'll have to try. I put down lines of my 3 colors right onto the gel plate, and then I grabbed my large brayer to roll them out. When I pressed my YUPO onto the plate and picked it up, I got this soft wash of the colors, as well as some blending and even a bit of muddiness, but you'll see that it turned out okay, even though it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. Since the brayer still had quite a lot of ink on it and it was still wet, I rolled it onto the plate again before putting down this pretty stencil from Altenew. I tried to pick up the ink from around the stencil with my panel, but it was drying pretty quickly and I didn't get much up. So I lifted the stencil. I could see there was a nice print there if I could get it up. So I spritzed the panel with some alcohol to get it wet before placing it down back onto the gel plate. This time I got more color up and a subtle print of the stencil. To finish this card, I trimmed down the panel to center the design, and I used the leftover bits to cut the top layer of the Happy Birthday die cut. The muted color blend here is really pretty, and it gives an elegant, more vintage look. No, this is not déjà vu. Yes, I used this background stamp in last week's video about getting more from our background stamps. This week I'm spritzing the stamp with alcohol and stamping it down onto an extra panel I made with the bubble wrap technique. Speaking of last week, some of you asked about my whiteboard eraser tool that I use for rubbing my misty door. The felt makes it move smoothly over the door and it gives even pressure. So by stamping the alcohol down, I'm kind of lifting some of the color, and it's fun how some of the ink pools and they almost look like dots in dots, or eyes. I see that there's still ink on the stamp, so I give it another spritz, because why wouldn't we want a 2-for-1? And I press it down. To clean the stamp, I spritz more alcohol and remove the ink, and then I cleaned the stamp with a stamp cleaner to ensure there wasn't any alcohol sitting on that red rubber. In the end, I only made 1 card with these 2 panels, but I matched up the positive dots on the white background with the lifted dots and a die-cut Happy Birthday sentiment from MFT stamps. I layered each letter with another one cut from black cardstock to add dimension and definition. And finally, this is a technique I actually have tried before. This time, instead of YUPO, I'm using a piece of clear acetate. To apply the inks, I used an old felt applicator by squeezing some of the 3 colors onto a little felt piece, then adding blending solution and pouncing it over the acetate. Let me get a white background so you can get a better look at it. It's a little wimpy. Maybe there was too much solution. So I added a little more ink to the felt and I went back in, and this time I got more vibrant results. The inks move even after I stop playing, so at some point you just have to stop and let it dry. This is a pretty neat look on its own, and you could do it on vellum as well and get a more cloudy look. But now I'm going to put a Catherine Pooler stencil over it and take one of the little felts with some alcohol on it and just blot through the stencil. You don't want to rub it, just pounce it up and down, and this will remove some of the alcohol inks and give us a really neat pattern. I used the panel to create a window card by cutting a circle from the center of the front of my card. Then I added a black mat, also with a circle cut out, and I added back in a CZ design flower. I left the acetate panel exposed around the outside edge of the card, but in the center area is a window and you can see right through to the inside of the card. I used liquid glue for everything, and you can see that from the inside it looks pretty tidy because it all dried clear. Using acetate like this gives a beautiful stained glass effect, and the black and gold accents really give it an elegant feel. The best part about alcohol inks is that even if you're experimenting like I did here and things don't turn out exactly how you thought, you'll still get lots of backgrounds that can be used in different ways to make unique, beautiful cards. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.